Now that the Trump administration has amped up deportations to Mexico and other Latin American countries, he is, of course, talking about it with people like manufacturing CEOs and how he's doing a great job in getting the criminals out. In fact, he referred to these deportations in a way that has alarmed some. Take a look.
See what's happening at the border. All of a sudden, for the first time, we're getting gang members out, we're getting drug lords out, we're getting really bad dudes out of this country, and at a rate that nobody's ever seen before. And they're the bad ones. And it's a military operation because what has been allowed to come into our country, when you see gang violence that you've read about like never before, and all of the things, much of that is people that are here illegally. And they're rough and they're tough, but they're not tough like our people. So we're getting them out.
Okay, so he referred to this as a military operation, which would indicate that the military is involved in these deportations. So he had promised previously that the military would have no involvement, and then he says military operation, so of course that led to a lot of confusion, which of course led to the White House releasing a statement to not only do damage control, but clarify what Trump really meant. So a White House spokesperson said the president was clearly describing the orderly and professional manner in which his executive orders are being implemented and the administration's emphasis on removing serious criminals here in the U.S. illegally. Okay.
In other words, the opposite of what Trump said, because our president is a moron and he's a child and we have to spoon feed him talking points, and then he refused to listen to us and will go run off at the mouth about bad dudes that we had to do military operations against. Again, if it was a Democrat and they spoke like a moron like this, if Obama came out and said, I don't know, there were some bad dudes, they were tough and rough, but we were tougher and rougher. People say, oh my God, poor son of a bitch. You know, look at these Democrats, they're so stupid. Let alone what they would have said about him for other reasons, okay? Mm-hmm. But it's Trump, so they're like, oh, there's our orange buffoon again. Oh, we did a military operation inside the U.S. Bang, bang, I had so much fun. Hey, they're like, hey, knucklehead. You're not supposed to call it a military operation, it's inside the U.S. Oh, when do I tweet again?
Yeah.
Total freaking moron.
And look, as we know, language matters, especially when it's coming from the president. And when you use language like that, it does alarm people. It makes them think, oh my God, the military is going to get involved in these deportations. And right now, it's had a very chilling effect in the immigrant community, including immigrants who are here on visas, who are here legally, who are literally afraid to leave their houses and go to work because they think they're going to get detained and deported back. Also, Department of Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly also released a statement from Mexico City saying that no use of military, there will be no use of the military in these immigration operations.
So they say about Trump, his own staffers have said this numerous times, that you should take him seriously, but not literally. In other words, he does not know the words coming out of his mouth. He is such a child that you can't actually take him at face value. That he doesn't know, the president doesn't know what he's talking about. So please don't take him literally, because even his own staffers acknowledge he's a world-class moron and will just spew vomit out of his mouth. Oh, yeah, military operation, bang, bang, bang. Did I do a good job, Daddy? That's the child that's in office now. I got the bad dudes. Did I do a good job, Daddy? His IQ is like 3 points. He can barely connect dot A to dot B, barely.
All right, so the military statement was one component of what he said. Of course, the other component is this whole notion that they're only focusing on criminals, the so-called bad dudes. What's the reality? And the reality is that it's very difficult to get any information from the White House regarding who these people really are, right? So they say they're all criminals, but is that true? And if it is true, why isn't the White House being transparent? Why aren't they releasing data to reporters indicating who these people are and what type of crimes they've committed? Now, USA Today did its own analysis of these people who have been deported, and what they found is, unsurprisingly, the Trump administration is being a little misleading on this issue. So in early February, there were a number of deportations in several states, in dozens of states. And so of the 678 people rounded up in 12 states during the raids in early February, 74% of them had been convicted of a crime. So that's a high percentage. But that's actually down from 90% of detained people with criminal records in 2016 under the Obama administration. Now, early on in Obama's administration, that number was actually lower. But as his administration went on, he focused primarily on criminals. When it comes to Trump, there has been a large percentage of people who got detained and deported, even though they didn't commit a crime or they weren't convicted of a crime.
So even his own policy is that the people have to be charged or suspected of a chargeable criminal offense. But as you can tell from those stats, about 26% of them do not fit that category and they're deported anyway. Now, look, there's a difference between Trump and his staffers. So his staffers want to push tough on immigration policy through right away, and they think that that helps them with Americans for two reasons. One, his base wanted him to get quote-unquote tough on immigrants to begin with, so they're actually very happy about this. So now he didn't cook up that strategy. He's just a child that's the face of it, right? But I get the politics of that strategy. Second of all, it makes him seem strong. So he goes out there and he's like, oh, there's bad hombres, and we're the good dudes and not the bad dudes. And his simplistic base goes, yeah, we got the bad dudes, and they actually celebrate this. And they're like, oh, you liberals are crying, but we're getting the bad guys out. First of all, they're not all bad guys, as we explained here. And just because it might work politically doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do. And now let's be super clear about this. For the people that they are deporting who are criminals, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing, okay? Obama did it. Bush did it. Trump is doing it. And he says he's doing it at a faster rate. He's implementing things fast. I actually give him credit for that, okay? Even if I disagree with what he's implementing. Is he doing it at a greater rate than Obama? There's no evidence of that at all. Mm-hmm. That part he just made up.
That's exactly right. And by the way, he has widened the net of individuals who can be deported. So he makes it seem as though, oh, it's just the criminals, the people who've been convicted of crime, but that is not the case. The new list added undocumented immigrants who have been charged with a crime but not convicted, just charged with a crime, those who have used fake Social Security numbers to find jobs, which, by the way, if not the majority, or if not all of them, the majority of them are going to use fake Social Security numbers to find jobs. That's the whole reason why they're here, to work, right?
So is it a real crime, or is it because they're undocumented that you're kicking them out?
Yeah.
If it's a crime, robbery, theft, it doesn't matter what it is. They got to go. They got convicted of that. It's not close. Every Democrat, every Republican agrees. You got to kick them out, and they have, okay? And Obama did it in record numbers. So on the other hand, if you're saying you came here without documents, and in order to work, you filled out a fake Social Security form. Okay, then you're kicking him out for being undocumented. And by the way, your base will love that too. I get that. I understand that. Mm-hmm. Just be honest about what you're doing. And a lot of other people will say, that seems cruel. Instead, it's not to say that they should just stay and fake things all they want. No, we should have a decent, reasonable policy on immigration reform. So perhaps if they work here and fill out the right paperwork for X number of years, then they can get a pathway to citizenship, but they've got to earn it. That is, by the way, what an overwhelming majority of Americans believe. That is not what Trump is doing. No pathway to citizenship, no reasonable way to stay. If you're undocumented, he's going to find some excuse to kick you out, including, hey, you're working here. Yeah, that's the whole point. That's why they came here.
Also, I think it's important to keep in mind that we always see one side of undocumented immigration in the country, right? And so you hear undocumented immigrants and you think, bad. They came into the country illegally, they're breaking the laws, and they're providing nothing to society. At least that's the narrative that you see playing out over and over again in the media and definitely with this administration. But that's not the case. So we live in California. We have a large immigrant population here. We actually have a large undocumented immigrant population here, about 2.7 million undocumented immigrants. And the reality is, if we were to deport all of the undocumented immigrants in this state, it would destroy this state's economy. So I have hard numbers on that. About 10% of the workforce in California is composed of undocumented immigrants. These are people who work in the agriculture industry and also in the construction industry. 21% of construction workers are undocumented in California. 45% of people who work in the agriculture industry in California are undocumented. So that's a lot of people, and they're actually contributing a lot to this economy. And construction workers or construction companies in the state are actually struggling to find workers as it is. And now they're alarmed by this because they're like, what are we going to do? We don't have enough of a workforce now. If they deport all of these undocumented workers, we can't build these homes. We can't start new construction. We can't work on the infrastructure of California. This would be a nightmare for us.
There is a stunning number of unfilled construction jobs. You know what it is? 200,000 unfilled construction jobs in the country. That's amazing. So if you take away 45% of the agricultural workers and you take away more construction workers, the economy is going to grind to a halt. So this is why it matters that the president is a child. So they're going to go and say, oh, we're going to get the bad guys and we're going to get them out. Ha, 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 I'm the good guy. Bleh. Oops, the economy stopped working because we didn't have a reasonable, smart path so that we can incorporate the immigrants into our society, or decide not to in ways that we determine ahead of time and not just blunder into and just kick them all out and go, oh, oops, there's no more agriculture left. So that consequence is coming your way. And if you're a Trump voter or you're anybody, don't get surprised when it happens. We told you right now that it's going to happen. And we've seen this happen in southern states that wanted to get tough on immigrants. They kicked them out, and then they couldn't run their factories, and then they had to invite them back in. So be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Corporate media is awesome.
Wrong.
Independent media is the way to go.
Believe me. Believe me.
Support independent media right now. Become a Young Turks member. TYTnetwork.com/join.